The rain had been falling since dawn, the kind of cold, steady rain that soaked through shoes and made the city feel heavier than usual. Outside a brightly lit bakery in a quiet American town, a woman stood under a flickering streetlight, clutching a thin jacket around her shoulders. Her hands trembled, not just from the cold, but from the weight of what she was about to do. Inside the bakery, warm light spilled onto the sidewalk, carrying the smell of fresh bread and sweet frosting. The sign on the window promised celebration and joy. But for her, stepping inside felt like stepping into a world she no longer belonged to. That morning, she was about to ask for something that would either break her completely or give her daughter one small moment of happiness she desperately needed. Before the story continues, if you believe in second chances, kindness quests, and stories that remind us humanity still exists, please take a moment to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. Her name was Emily Carter, a 32-year-old single mother who had once lived a very different life. Not long ago, she had a modest home, a stable job as a nursing assistant, and dreams that stretched beyond survival. But life had not unfolded gently. A sudden medical emergency, followed by months of unpaid leave, swallowed her savings. The man she once trusted walked away when things became difficult, leaving her with a 5-year-old daughter named Lily and more bills than hope. Emily fought hard, taking cleaning jobs, late shifts, and anything she could find, but the rising costs and unexpected setbacks slowly pushed her to the edge. By the time winter arrived, she was living out a small motel room, counting every dollar and praying each day that Lily would not notice how close they were to losing even that. Lily's birthday had arrived quietly that week, marked only by a date circled on a scrap of paper Emily kept folded in her pocket. The little girl had not asked for presents or parties. She had simply mentioned with innocent excitement that she hoped there would be cake like the one she saw in store windows, with pink frosting and tiny flowers. Emily smiled when Lily said it, but later that night, she cried silently in the bathroom, so her daughter would not hear. She could afford dinner or gas, but not both, and certainly not a birthday cake. Yet the thought of Lily blowing out candles on nothing but air felt unbearable. That was how Emily found herself standing outside the bakery, rehearsing her request in her mind. She did not plan to beg for money. She only hoped that maybe, just maybe, there was an expired cake, something destined for the trash, that could be spared. The idea humiliated her, but love for her daughter was stronger than pride. She took a deep breath, wiped rain from her face, and stepped inside. At the far end of the bakery, seated near the window, was a man named Jonathan Reed. To most of the town, Jonathan was known as a reserved but powerful figure, a self-made millionaire who owned several businesses across the state. He was in his early 40s, dressed simply but expensively, and rarely drew attention to himself. That morning, he had come in early to review documents over coffee, enjoying the quiet before the day's meetings began. He had learned long ago to keep his head down and his emotions guarded, shaped by a childhood where struggle was constant and mercy was rare. Jonathan noticed Emily the moment she entered, not because she demanded attention, but because of how carefully she moved, as if afraid of taking up space. He watched her approach the counter, her hands clasped tightly together. There was something familiar in her posture, something that stirred an old, uncomfortable memory in him, though he could not yet place it. Emily spoke softly to the young employee behind the counter, her voice nearly drowned out by the hum of ovens and the rain against the glass. She explained her situation without embellishment, her eyes fixed on the counter rather than the worker's face. She mentioned her daughter's birthday, the lack of money, and finally, the question she practiced so many times in her head. She asked if there might be an expired cake, something they could not sell anymore, anything that could make a little girl smile for one day. The employee hesitated, clearly unsure how to respond. Policies, rules, and procedures hovered between compassion and obligation. As the moment stretched, Emily felt every second like a judgment on her worth as a mother. She prepared herself for rejection, telling herself she would thank them politely and leave before tears betrayed her. Jonathan heard everything. The words reached him not as sound alone, but as a sharp echo from his past. He remembered his own mother standing in a grocery store decades earlier, asking if bruised fruit could be discounted because it was all she could afford. He remembered the heat of shame on her face and the way he had looked away, wishing he were invisible. That memory had fueled his ambition, driving him to escape poverty at any cost. Yet somewhere along the path to success, he had buried that part of himself under layers of discipline and detachment. As Emily stood waiting, the employee explained gently that expired cakes were usually discarded and could not be given away due to policy. The words landed like a final blow. Emily nodded, forcing a smile that did not reach her eyes. She thanked the employee and turned to leave, her shoulders sagging as if carrying a weight far heavier than her thin frame. Jonathan felt something inside him crack. For years, he had written checks to charities and attended fundraising dinners, believing that was enough. But this moment was different. This was not a distant cause or a tax deduction. This was a mother and a child, standing in the same kind of quiet desperation he once knew too well. Before Emily reached the door, Jonathan stood up. He moved toward the counter, his presence calm but purposeful. The employee recognized him immediately and straightened, unsure what was about to happen. Jonathan did not raise his voice or demand anything. He simply asked to speak with the manager and placed his credit card on the counter. Within minutes, the atmosphere shifted. The manager appeared, flustered but attentive, and Jonathan made a simple request. He asked for the most beautiful cake they could make, with pink frosting and flowers, along with candles and a small birthday message. He insisted it be prepared immediately. There was no mention of policy, no hesitation. The bakery buzzed with sudden urgency. Emily stood frozen near the door, confused and embarrassed, unsure if she was somehow in trouble. When the manager gently explained that the cake was being made for her daughter, free of charge, Emily shook her head in disbelief. She tried to refuse, her instinct telling her she did not deserve such kindness. But Jonathan stepped forward and spoke quietly, telling her that sometimes people needed help, and at this time it was simply her turn. Tears welled in Emily's eyes as the weight she had been carrying finally found release. She thanked him repeatedly, her gratitude raw and unfiltered. Jonathan listened, but his gaze drifted to the rain-streaked window, his thoughts tangled with memories of his mother and all the moments when no one had stepped in for them. The cake emerged from the kitchen, radiant and perfect, everything Lily had imagined and more. The sight of it made Emily laugh through her tears, a sound that felt foreign after months of stress and fear. Jonathan added a gift card quietly, enough to cover groceries and a little extra, slipping it into the cake box without drawing attention. That evening, in the dim motel room, Lily's eyes lit up brighter than any candle when she saw the cake. She clapped her hands, her joy pure and unguarded, unaware of the sacrifice and humility that had made that moment possible. Emily watched her daughter blow out the candles, making a wish she would never share, and felt a warmth she had not felt in a long time. For the first time in months, hope felt real. Days passed, but the encounter stayed with Jonathan. He found himself thinking about Emily and Lily during meetings, wondering how many others were silently struggling around him. The memory pushed him to act in ways he had not before. He funded a local program to help single parents with emergency expenses, not as a publicity move, but as a personal mission. He began visiting community centers, listening instead of leading, remembering what it felt like to be unseen. Emily's life did not change overnight, but that day marked a turning point. With renewed strength, she applied for assistance programs she had once been too ashamed to approach. She found a better job through community referral and slowly began to rebuild. The kindness she received that morning became a quiet source of courage, reminding her that even in her lowest moment, she had not been invisible. As for Jonathan, the millionaire who had heard everything, he learned that success meant little if it did not soften the heart. The simple act of listening, of responding with compassion in a moment that mattered, reshaped his understanding of wealth and purpose. He realized that the greatest investments were not measured in returns, but in restored dignity and renewed hope. If this story has touched your heart in any way, if it reminded you of the power of small acts of kindness and the difference one moment can make, please take a second to like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps spread these stories of hope to those who may need them most. Before you go, we have a special request for you. Please comment below with the word kindness if you believe that compassion can change lives, or share a moment when someone's kindness changed yours. Your words might inspire someone who is struggling right now. Because sometimes all it takes to change a life is being willing to hear everything and choosing to respond with a heart that remembers what it means to be human.